to another Garage Gamers!
Welcome back. I am Icecube, and right here...
Whoa!
Yes, and don't question the voice, even I'm confused by the voice.
Let's change it up.
He went for surgery recently, he hasn't been the same.
No, my butt aches.
For some reason that affected his voice.
Yeah. Woo!
We are the world's #1 gaming video, according to his mum.
Not even. I don't think she's ever watched the video.
But she still calls it #1.
I don't even think she knows that we do this.
She still, gives it a pat in the head though. I think that's an endorsement in itself. But we're going to talk about games today. In particular, what are we going to talk about, Zorbz?
No Kuni II.
Yes, we're giving this game a lot of exposure for mysterious reasons. But this time we gave a first look preview last time, and now we're going to actually give it a review. Because you've played the game in quite a bit of depth.
Yes, and I love it.
Right, spoiler alert. Okay, so with that, thank you for joining us. And,
Yes.
now we will get into a bit more nitty gritty, and we'll start now. Now, what's the game about? Give us a bit of a synopsis of the No Kuni II.
So it starts off in an interesting way.
Wow.
There's a car driving towards a city, and it's a presidential car, and there's the whole little mob of cars following, as the president does. And the president's in the back seat, and they're just having a little conversation. Then all of a sudden, as they're driving towards the city, over a bridge...
Someone shoots you in the face.
Nearly! A bloody missile, a nuclear bomb, just heads towards the city past the car and just obliterates the whole city. The explosion goes off, sends his car flying. He, half dead, crawls out of the car and then just teleports.
This sounds like a job for a little blonde-haired boy that looks very much like a blonde-haired girl.
Exactly. So, he just teleports and then he ends up in this fantasy world. And for some reason he's younger as well. So he looks in the mirror and he's like, hey. And he ends up in that little boy that
you are explaining that. So that's the president.
Yeah. And he looks like the little... Yeah. See, now you got me all confused. He ends
Trust
up...
me, we're confused too when we play the game.
He ends up in the little boy that looks like a little girl's room, whose name is Evan. And he's actually a king, by the way. No, it's just Evan. And he's actually...
Evan.
Shut up and stop ruining the review. He's actually a king.
Yep.
And this man just appears in his house. He's like, what? Who are you? How'd you get in here? Blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, alright, I have no idea where I am. And then he looks in the mirror and he's like, whoa, this is interesting because he's gone younger. Anyway.
What type of game is it?
It's JRPG.
JRPG, right? So it's not the kind of old school, low budget JRPG, is it?
Yeah, hell no.
Well, what does it do differently to those JRPGs?
Alright, well, we're doing the concept. Calm down.
Yeah, don't give away all the story though. We just want to get...
I'm not going to give away the story. I'm just
going
going
to
to give a broader overview. That's not really an overview of what you're doing.
No, it's a JRPG, and is it open world, not open world? Is it like sandbox?
Calm down. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
We're going to start with the basics.
So, the little boy who is soon to be king, his father is murdered, and basically there's a ploy to get him out of the kingdom. They fake his death, piss him off out of the castle. And so you are trying to regain your kingdom and take back what is rightfully yours. And yeah, so you are going around meeting people around this open world.
That's what you do.
And you are trying to recruit people to create your kingdom and to build it up from scratch, because half the people that were in your kingdom are now under the rule of this evil dictator wannabe king.
Right, okay. So so he wants you to follow the little girly man.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
You control little girly man. He's actually the main character, even though it starts off using the other guy. He's not actually the main character. He's more like an advisor to the kid, because he was a president. So he sort of has...
So he's not the president.
He keeps saying, I have information, like, I know what it's like to run a country. So he's helping the little boy to establish his kingdom and, advise him, because he is still a child.
Okay, so what do you... So what's his obstacles in doing this? He has to talk to people, he has to recruit them. We need to know more about what this looks and feels like. Like it's what type of world is he in? Like, is it a...
Well, that leads into the visuals. So visually, very over-the-top, colourful, bright, fancy, wonderful world. It's filled with monsters and creatures and all that. So it's very fantasy heavy. it's a strange mix because you do have that one guy who's teleported and he's from the real world into this fantasy world, so there's a little bit of a blend there. And the fantasy world is weird because they have like half human, half animal creatures. Like the king, the boy that you play as, he's like half cat or something. Like I can't even remember.
Yep. So inexplicable things and people.
Yeah, it's very fantasy heavy, very fantasy. And the first game was made by, or was co-produced or something by Studio Ghibli.
Yep.
Who do all those famous animes.
Yep.
This one, I think they might have had like one artist from Studio Ghibli, so it's not the full Studio Ghibli treatment, but it still follows that same style and look.
Yeah.
Very gorgeous game. Graphics are amazing for the character animation. Now, I will say this. The characters look fantastic. The animations are great. The only problem is the environments are really colourful and varied. So you'll be in the desert, you'll be in the mountains, you'll be in the grassy lands, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But the actual geometry of the world, like you'll be running and there'll just be like some boulders and stuff, but they look very, almost a fine line between PS2 and PS3 graphics. With some nicer textures put on. Like, they're just very blocky.
You're talking about the landscape and stuff here.
Yeah, like some of the landscape just looks very blocky.
You're talking about, like, I mean, we haven't really gone into this yet, but if we're talking about JRPGs, I'm imagining there's like a world map, and there's sections where you're walking around the world map, and there's other sections where it kind of gets into combat.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Town.
Yeah,
so, but when you say they're blocking, you're talking about from the world map view, you're talking about from when they're in combat?
In both.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you've got these amazing characters that sometimes look a bit odd in this not so great environment. Now, the environment has a lot of charm and, they're very diverse environments from each other. So that sort of, it puts a positive side of it. The only problem is when you're just, looking around and you're like, well, this looks very basic with a nice polish over the top, you know what I mean? So that's the only downside I'd have with it. There is some environments that just look a lot worse than the others. From what you saw when we entered the...
previous video.
Yes, when we entered that casino-looking town where it was all nice, that looks amazing. But then you go into like a forest and it doesn't look that great.
So that's why they showed you the amazing one in the demo, but left out the not-so-good ones for the review. Yeah,
and it's got a weird style because your characters are very cel-shaded, anime looking. And the environments have got like a water, like almost like a
watercolor.
Yeah, like an almost watercolored sort of paint over the top. Looks similar to the latest Zelda game.
Well, you kind of expect that with No Kuni. I mean, they came forward with that whole style with the first one, and you really expect them to kind of follow up with a very similar thing. Visually, how does it compare to the first one?
That's the problem. I didn't really play the first one.
So,
and the first one was a PS3 game.
Yes.
But I still feel like, even just by looking at it, I feel maybe those environments, they're using assets from, not to create the same worlds, but maybe the tools that they use to create the environments in the PS3 one that they're still using. Because it does look last gen, some of these environments.
Yeah, okay.
But...
Let's talk about the gameplay a bit now. Let's just roll this on. So let's go straight to combat. What's the combat like here?
So the original one, I did play the demo, and that was about it. And it was enough to turn me off because I was so sick of playing turn-based RPG. This one is not a turn-based RPG. This one is right up my alley. It's action RPG. You actually press the button to attack, not just bloody attack and then wait for him to go up.
I'm neither here nor there on that one. I think it depends how good the game is, but there's room for both turn-based and action.
It runs at 60 frames. It's fast. It's fluid. The action is great. You've got light attack, heavy attack, magic that you can use. You can upgrade your weapons, armor, and all the stats in the world. Very RPG-like. You use 3 characters on the battlefield at once. You can switch between them at any time. So you might be using the boy Evan, then you switch between Tani, the little rough girl who uses more ranged weapons and stuff.
We sure this one's a girl? Like,
she's 100%.
Is that one a boy or something? 100%. Like they flip it around? I don't know.
And yeah, I just love the fact that you can swap in between battles. Like if you're just using one character and you just feel like, oh, I'll use this guy now.
Yeah, that's fine. It's not the brand new concept.
No,
it's nice to have, I guess.
Oh, and this nose is itchy.
We'll do a video montage.
I'm allergic to cats, and he has a cat, so
we'll do a video montage of your nose scratching off.
Oh god, and sneezing. Anyway,
some dance music or something.
So you're in a contained environment when you're battling, but it's really huge. Like, so the way if you enter a random battle, right, for example, and you think, oh crap, this guy's demolishing me, you can run to the edge of the battle, and then if you keep running against this invisible wall, then you'll exit the battle.
Yeah.
But it's large enough that you're not constantly hitting that, and there's enough room for all the characters. And you're fighting like 6 or 7 enemies sometimes at a time, so it's really good.
If you had to pick the most unique thing, selling point that this game has that other JRPGs doesn't have, what would you say that is?
I don't know.
I could take a guess.
Because I think it's just a lot more fast-paced for me than a lot of JRPGs. A lot of JRPGs drag on and they're really slow, especially when I was talking about Sword Art Online, and I just couldn't get into it. It was too slow. It wasn't... In
terms of the pacing? Because the action was fast.
The pacing.
The pacing, okay.
You know, the battles, like, I just...
So the story pacing.
Yeah, this you're just fighting a lot. And what I do like is you have your overworld.
It didn't look too fast in the demo. The pacing.
Well, that was because we're in a slow part of the environment. That was more of a story-heavy environment.
So what you're saying, you were engaged enough to make it feel like you were kind of really rolling along with the story?
Yeah, and I actually want to keep playing all the time.
So there's not much, is there a lot of waffle going, like they kind of, you know how a lot of JRPGs just go off and tangents?
We'll get to that in the sound department of our review. But
why not the story part at the beginning?
So there's cool extra gameplay features that I want to talk about. So generally in Final Fantasy, Pokemon and all that, you've got that sort of top-down view, the overworld part, and you've got that.
Yeah.
And when you enter battle, then it opens up and it's a big battlefield. There is some sections, though, where you're just running through... So let me start with the overworld. You have these little chibi characters, these mini versions, which I think you saw in the video. Watch it if you don't know what I'm talking about. I'll put it in the video anyway.
Yeah.
So there's little chibi characters, then you'll go to your full-size character in the battles.
Yeah.
Now, there's sections where the battles will just happen. Like, you won't have to enter into a battle. You'll just be running through the environment and be able to fight as is. And that's always more satisfying.
Does it zoom in at all or anything? Or just...
No, it's as if you're just fighting straight from the normal view of when you're playing.
It's pretty far away, isn't it? Like, you kind of wouldn't be able to see very well.
No, that's the overworld. It's weird looking and then it zooms in. But when you're playing, it's normal third-person action RPG. Like, it's...
Oh, okay.
And I don't know why they have these overworld sections at all. Like,
well, yeah,
they're not really.
It's just like there's some stigma attachments to the classic JRPG that I feel like Japan feels obliged to stick to constantly. It's just like they got just break free of the shackles and go your own way, do your own game. If you ever go to Japan and see the video game library that's on the shelves, there's about over 50% of the games there are ones that we've never even heard of or seen down here, and those over 50% are pretty much just all JRPGs, turn-based, and they're all copycats of each other, all super story-based. A lot of them are very story-based, where you don't do anything except for like click a button to read through some text and eventually make a choice that has zero impact on the direction of the story. So yeah.
So I started playing it, and you're doing the combat and that, and I thought that was pretty much the whole game. Then they do the typical puzzle things that a lot of Final Fantasy games do, where you'll enter like I think in Final Fantasy they used to call them a palace, and then there'd be some sort of like little mind game thing that you had to work out, some sort of puzzle. Okay. And they've got that in there too, which is, breaks it up a bit. And so I was just playing for about 12 hours and I'm thinking, okay, this is pretty much the game. I enjoy it as it is. But then you get to chapter, I think it was chapter 4, and you actually start doing basically a kingdom management system. So you basically got your little town, and like Command and Conquer and all that, you decide which building you're going to place there, and then you can research to upgrade your abilities, and you put different characters that you do side quests for.
Can you build a barracks and make minions that come out one by one and take over the enemy tanks?
No.
Warplanes?
None of that crap.
You said Command and Conquer.
So you can place all these different you know, if you want to have farming to get more resources, if you want to have upgrade your skills, your magic, you can get someone to research that.
Okay.
And it's all on a time scale. And if
How often do you do this?
Whenever you want.
So you go.
You can go back anytime you want in between
so you
missions.
You have to go somewhere to do it, or you can just press the pause button and you go to a.
You have to go back to the
the
hub world. It's your little kingdom.
Okay.
And you can level it up and all that sort of stuff. And it's cool because you do side quests, and the side quests aren't that great. But what it does end up doing is that person will then come to your kingdom, and they might be great at magic, or they might be great at battle, and then you put them to study or research the things that you want, and it makes it go quicker. You know, it quickens up everything.
Yep.
So that's a plus there. And another thing it does is little RTS battles. So there'll be a flag post, and it's like defend your kingdom type thing. And these are sort of optional. You only have to do a couple of them that are sort of mandatory, but you can sort of just do them for fun. So it'll be, again, little chibi characters, and you're on the overworld, and you'll prep like your forces, and it'll say like, okay, you want these guys with these attacks. This is how much might they have. So they'll be like 3,000 might, and then you'll be like 2,000. You're like, okay, am I strong enough to verse them? Do I risk it? All that sort of stuff.
So at this point, I'll keep going. Maybe you're going to get to my question.
So you do all that, you do all your preparations, then you start. So your little character is in the middle, your little King Evan, and then you've got troops on each side of him. So at the start you'll only have troops on the left and the right, and then you can get more troops.
Yeah.
And you can rotate them. So the way it works is you'll run towards an enemy, and it's sort of like rock, scissors, paper. Like you'll have guys that are archers, and you'll have guys that are sort of melee, and you have to just rotate them to be fighting the right type, otherwise you'll get demolished. Like, so if an archer's fighting a guy with a melee weapon, you're right up against him, obviously you're just going to plow through him. So you just got to basically run and rotate and move them to get the outcome that you want.
Right. So
and it's simple, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah. It sounds like a good little different element to it, and it also brings the element of the fact that this person's a ruler, and he's trying to recruit people and trying to build an army, so...
So it does have that army aspect to it as well.
Yeah. Did we work out why he looks like a girl?
No, he's just a kid.
We're going to have to work this out by the time we finish this video.
And I mean, his kingdom, the original kingdom, is called Ding Dong Dell.
Maybe that's how you're supposed to know that as a boy.
There's other references to wieners in there as well.
Maybe that's the mystery of the game. You got to take the clues and figure out, hey, it's not a girl.
And then his name is Evan Pettiwinkle, or I can't remember. They're weird names. It's very fantasy heavy. So yeah, gameplay is varied. I didn't get bored playing it. There was a bit of grinding, typical JRPG where you got to level up by fighting the same monsters over and over.
Okay.
But it was never so difficult that I had to spend hours doing that. And that's what I enjoy, because I don't want to be spending hours just doing the same thing.
Yeah, something about doing that, and I don't know about grinding in JRPGs. I find it really tedious.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do the story, because it feels like you're moving forward with the story. But then I have to go back and just grind for the sake of just having to get stronger.
I know, yeah.
It's too tedious for that.
And that's what I like about this. It doesn't do that as much.
Some games are fine to grind, but JRPGs, nah.
Yeah. So another positive thing and a negative at the same time. So JRPGs usually have you going back and forward between places, right? They'll be like, get this item, and you get that item, and then they're like, now go back here, and then you got to travel there, and then you go back there, and then he gives you something, and he's like, go back to where you came.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of that in
That's
this.
how you save time on level design.
You're doing so much of that. Like, especially in, I think it was chapter 3, the one that you saw, where he's in that casino thing. I'm going back to the bloody area that I started, and then going back there, then back.
Yeah, but that's how they get you to kind of like spend a long chunk of the game in one place and not have to do a brand new level design for it.
And so the way that works is that also is the way that gets you to start fighting more often. So while you're going back and forward, you're getting into these random battles, and then you are gaining experience in that. But then when you get to a point where you're overly powered for the enemies and they don't bother chasing you to try and start a battle, You're just like, I can't be bothered doing that. So there's the fast travel options. And normally in games, you hit fast travel. It's not a fast travel. You wait for a bloody minute or so of loading. This is really quick to load up these new environments. You can travel from one end of the map to the other end of the map, completely different environment. Takes like maybe 10 seconds. If that.
Well, that's pretty standard, isn't it? That's nothing special.
No, it's not standard.
Yeah.
The amount of times, like I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn, you want to transport to another part of the map, you bloody wait like a minute or 2 minutes.
That's Horizon Zero Dawn.
I know.
Every game's different.
This is great. It's just really snappy. You know, loading is just, it's there, but it doesn't really bother me at all. Like it's literally a little guy comes on the screen, he wiggles his butt, done.
All right, let's move to sounds.
Sound.
Now, I bet you, the music's probably pretty amazing.
Music is good. Music is good.
Well, I mean, they've got the full orchestra, don't they? Like the first one.
But it just gets really repetitive. You're hearing the same tunes over and over and over.
But when they make you go adventuring forever and they kind of make you go back and forward, you kind of got to recycle the tune a bit, right? Yeah.
So it's got really good music.
Is it catchy though? Or is it just kind of not that good?
Yeah, some of it you're humming along to, but
it's not like like Zelda, original Zelda.
No, it's not like, oh my god, I feel like I'm in this amazing. No, it's very kid friendly. Like it's very. It's like you're watching a kids movie, like a very fantasy heavy. I don't know, it's upbeat and chirpy. If that. Yeah,
but it's not. But it's still kind of got the orchestral stuff. Like the first game, they like paid the Japanese.
I don't know if they're using a bloody orchestra, but it's orchestral sounding.
It depends on the budget size, right?
So the main criticism is, and I think you experience this too, is there is actual characters talking, like there is voice acting, but it's very minimal. You might have one cutscene that lasts for a minute of voice acted parts, and then the rest is just dialogue that you have to read.
Lazy.
With the occasional, it'll be like, hey! And then it'll have like 10 lines of dialogue. Then someone else will be like, what? And then it's a lot of reading and a lot of
reading. Jeez, that's unforgivable.
So
pay your
it
voice
is unforgivable in this day and age. Back in PS1 era, we were used to that. Final Fantasy was just reading central, you were reading a whole novel whilst playing the game.
Yeah, you had X amount of space to work with back in those days. Yeah, I mean,
but now it's
again, it's just another example of copy and paste from previous games.
And you know what sucks?
This brings back to that question I asked you before, which I need you to answer, because a lot of things that we're talking about here, it's really recycled. But is there, in fact, is there, and if there is there something about this game which kind of separates from other JRPGs that you can identify? And if not, that's it. It's fine. That's an answer in itself. But if so, what is it?
That's in our awesomeness section. Right? You're getting ahead of yourself. All
right. We'll wait for the awesomeness section.
So my main complaint, apart from having to read a lot, is I actually don't mind the voice acting. Like it's charming and it's fun, and I just think, well, why didn't you put more effort into this? Because it would have made it even more enjoyable.
Isn't that the Zelda thing to do? You just go like, hey, listen, and then read a whole bunch of type. Like it's just rinse and repeat.
I know, but
it's all right. I mean,
but Zelda has a lot less dialogue than this game.
Yeah.
I just wish there was just more voice acting.
Yeah.
But what can you do? Alright, so what are we on to next? Now we're on to the awesomeness section.
So now you get to answer the question.
Alright, so I think what makes it stand out is the fact that it has all these different types of gameplay elements. You do have your normal battling and leveling up. Then you've got your kingdom management. Then you've got that little RTS battles. Then you've got just your typical story as well. Like, it's just a lot of things to break it up, to not have you just slogging away doing the same thing over and over and over. Yeah. And that just is enough to keep me going. I mean, Final Fantasy, like the old ones, I used to love like 7 and 8. But then when I try to go back to them now, they were classics back then. Trying to go back now, it's just like...
It's very
hard.
Difficult,
It's hard.
Well, I've worked out a way to manage that though, and you have to force yourself away from the modern games and just play. Just force yourself to kind of play through and get reused to what it was like. Give it an hour, maybe 2 hours, and I promise you, you'll be back in that zone. You'll be accepting the graphics that are before you, the awkward, clunky controls that are with you, and you'll be right back in the zone again. I promise. That's advice for everybody out there trying to play old games again. It's tricky at first, but persevere, and you'll get right back in that zone that you're in before.
But yeah, this is one of the first JRPGs I've played in a long time because they're just so dated and so slow paced for me now. I can't get into them.
Yeah, they're all trying to become the next Final Fantasy. That's where all this spawns from. It's spawned from kids who used to play Final Fantasy VII and used to love it, and now they want to make the next great big thing. And man, there are a lot of them. If you think you think a lot of them are ported to America, wait till you see how many are out in Japan and other Asian countries. There's huge numbers of JRPG attempts over there, and most of them are just absolute crap.
And I feel like those games, like I mentioned in Sword Art Online, they're long games just for the sake of being long. They're not long because there's actual substance there.
All of them are. Every single one.
That's the problem.
It's some kind of weird obsession. Again, copying each other and pasting the same damn thing. They just kind of keep repeating the same things, and I don't know why they're not trying to do something a little different. I mean, it sounds like here they did do a couple of different things.
Another thing I'll say is they break it up into chapters as well. You do chapter 1. You can still go through and in the open world, but it's sort of there's environments that are blocked off. You need to unlock a new upgrade to get to another area. So it's kind of like that Metroidvania style as well.
This kind of goes a bit back to story, and I apologise, but it's quite a key question. How much can you vary from the story at hand?
Oh, no,
is there any variance at all? You're following the one.
It's just one story,
and you can't can you choose where to visit, or is it just a waste of time?
It's pretty much this is where you're going.
Right.
So, for example, I don't want to spoil anything, but you
it.
start off and then you go to recruit people for your kingdom, and then they're just pretty much like, this is where we're going next.
Right.
And I actually don't mind that.
That's okay. It's not an essential thing. It just depends on the flavour of the game that you're playing. So if that suits this game, then
it's definitely more linear, and that's why I feel like it doesn't have all these wasted hours of just crap that you don't need in the game. It gets rid of that, and it's just straight to the point. And that's what I like.
No, that's good. That sounds like it probably suits a game like this too. Because the last thing you need is just like getting lost out and heading in the wrong direction and having to spend an hour walking back to where you were and all that stuff. So, do you think we're at a point where we can discuss, what your overall thoughts are of the game, or do we have to wait for the next section?
Well, we're up to that section. So, I really love it. Like, I enjoyed playing it, and I was at work going, I just want to go back and play it. I just want to play it.
He was at work playing it.
I wish. Oh, imagine that was on the Switch. Oh. Anyway, but yeah, I think the last action RPG that I really got into was The Witcher 3, and different game. Like, that's not a JRPG, but that would be the closest thing where it's a long game that I've just stuck with, because most of these long games I'll play like 10, 15 hours and then be like, I've had enough, and then move on. So
it depends how much you're getting into it.
Yeah, if they feel too repetitive, and this hasn't felt too repetitive. I'm engaged. I want to see what happens. It was really good. I actually really enjoyed it. I had no intention, by the way, of picking it up. I just thought, well, I didn't like the first one.
You were reviewing it, so
yeah.
So even if you hated it, we'd still have to force you to play through it.
Yeah, but it was a nice surprise when I went to the preview event and I tried it out, and I didn't. They were there. They were like, "We've got Ni no Kuni 2 to show you and Soul Calibur 6," and I was just going there for Soul Calibur 6. Yeah. And then I played Ni no Kuni 2, and I sort of just played a bit of Soul Calibur 6.
Yeah, but I mean, you saw enough of the first one to know that it had a certain quality to it, surely from the game.
Yeah, but it just wasn't for me.
That's right. Yeah. So, but suddenly you're saying this one kind of. I mean, is it for you now?
Yeah. Definitely.
But
if they made a third game and it went back to the old style of,
But it's the style's nearly the same though, isn't it?
No, the combat is completely different.
Oh, so it's the combat.
It's the combat.
Okay, well, there you go. That's
the combat is amazing because it's so fast, and
but what about
you hack and slash and then you throw in fireballs and.
But what about? I mean, there's going to be a lot of people out there that prefer turn-based because
And my answer to them is screw you. There's enough games for you. There's so many of these bloody turn-based games.
Well, it's from Japan, yes, as we were just discussing.
So
But
go to Japan,
I want some,
get them all, and shut up.
I wouldn't mind some more Western turn-based ones, to be honest.
Well, you got bloody Persona, alright?
Oh, that's not Western.
It's made by friggin' Atlas. They're Japanese, aren't they?
Yeah, but I'm saying I want more Western.
Oh, sorry. Well, you know what I mean, you got Cyberpunk coming out. There you go.
Yeah,
but it's not a turn-based. You want Western turn-based.
No. I like action RPGs as well. But the thing is that there's been a real faux pas trend away from turn-based RPGs in the Western market. While Japan's still making
Fallout and Skyrim and all that sort of style. You know,
yeah.
Even Assassin's Creed, the latest one, is more RPG heavy.
Which one are we talking about?
Origins,
the
newest one.
Oh yeah, but even those games, I still see them as action games, even if they add an RPG element to it. It's still an action game.
Yeah, well, that's the difference between No Kuni II and that. Those are they're action first, light RPG, whereas this is heavy RPG. It's probably an even balance. But it's nowhere near as much action.
It just looked like an action adventure game to me. This new No Kuni.
Yeah.
I didn't see much into the RPG side of things. But
it's all the leveling up and getting upgraded weapons.
Yeah. I think an RPG needs to have a bit more substance to it to make it an RPG.
It's got substance.
Does it?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I haven't played it, so. So how many bugs would you cap this off with out of 5 bugs?
We're going to break it down. So concept, I'll give it...
You can give it an overall if you want.
I'll give it a 4 out of 5 for the concept. The story's engaging, but it's a kid's story. It's not like, some guy came and ripped the king's head off in front of him and he was like, no! Like, I would have been more engaged in that, but whatever.
Would have been surprising.
Visually... This is a hard one.
Studio Ghibli game.
Visually, because I love the colours and how bright it is and amazing it looks, but then the environments are a bit dodgy. Give it 4.5.
That's a huge score. It's like 9 out of 10.
Because the characters look amazing and the environments are so varied, and I'm just going to stick with that.
Okay.
Because we need 4.25, but we don't have that, so...
That's all right.
Yeah, it's between 4.5,
looking at it to me, I'd probably err on the side of 4.
Okay. Gameplay, 4.5 for sure. It doesn't have everything that it could be. It's not perfect, but it's really engaging for me. I really enjoy it.
Yep.
Sound-wise, I'm going to have to give it 3.5.
Even with the supposed amazing music?
Because it's not Zelda-like quality music.
Okay.
And the lack of bloody freaking voice acting.
Yeah. Okay.
It just drags it right down.
Alright,
and then the awesome...
But then don't forget, that's still a 7.
Yeah, it's still really good.
That's still a good score.
It's still good, It's not bad.
Yeah.
So
if you're thinking below average, we're talking below 2.5.
Yeah, it's definitely not below average.
Alright, cool.
And then for awesomeness, again, 4.5, because it's just awesome. Like, it just sucked me in, and I didn't expect it to.
Okay.
And I didn't expect after playing for 10 hours that a new game mechanic would be introduced.
I'm a bit worried about these games that you're picking up and getting sucked into, mate. They're all the kids' games. You get sucked into all the kids' games.
I do like them.
No wonder you love your Switch so much.
Yeah, Switch all the way.
Alright, well there you have it, guys. No Kuni II review. Well, his No Kuni II review. He's
definitely played it.
Yes, so there you go. If you have any questions or comments or feedback yourself, just chuck a little comment below, provided you're watching it on our YouTube channel. If you're watching it on our Gamebug page, good for you. That's an extra hit for us.
You can also leave a comment there too.
Yes, yeah, you can too, exactly. So just wherever you are, leave a comment. Love to hear from you.
Subscribe.
Yes, subscribe, and you will see more really low quality budget videos that we make on a semi-regular basis. So we have picked up the volume of videos we're doing lately. Yep. So we've got
a new member as well on staff that's helping with some reviews.
Yes, we've got a new review person. So we've got a lot of updating to do, but it's we're still alive and we're still breathing and we're still bringing you content.
Well, barely breathing, but
clinging on by a thread, but we're still here. Can't quite get rid of us yet. Alright, well thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video.
Ta-ta!
Bye.